Although I do remember wishing they'd stop arguing. I had this doll's house. My great-great-uncle Tom made it for me. I still have it up in the attic. But I had one doll that was Kate and another that was Debbie, and I'd play happy families with them. So when Kate ran away, or when Debbie would be upset over her boyfriend or whatever, I'd sit in my bedroom playing out little fantasies with my dolly sisters. It's funny, really. Even when I was older and Rory came to live with us, most of my memories of this house are still happy.
Well, it was your home.
Yeah. And there were wonderful times. All the big family Christmases, summers splashing the pool.
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Wood Lane, A124.
Reading his farmer's monthly. Maybe that's the reason he couldn't move back.
What, too many memories?
I did wonder, when you announced you were buying the place, I thought he might find it difficult. He seemed genuinely thrilled.
It's not that, Alice.
No?
Turn right onto Wood Lane, A124.
No. It's just I still don't understand why he's left me in the lurch either. Even when he tried to convince me to take him back, he still couldn't come up with a decent explanation.
When was this?
A couple of weeks ago. Insisted he loved me, but that he couldn't possibly leave Rory.
Why not?
Don't ask me. I'd have thought a young man his age would be only too happy to have his father out of his hair. It felt to me that Brian was just trying to find an excuse. The truth is, Alice, I don't know what's going on inside your father's head. All I know is that he's not the man who charmed me over the seared scallops at Les Sœurs Heureuses.
When do you think he changed?
Maybe sometime around the start of the year. He certainly seemed more distracted since then. Whatever the real problem is, I just wish he'd said something before I exchanged.
Oh, I know.
I'd still be in my beautiful cottage.
Continue for 2 miles.
I suppose you could always rent this place out and use the income to live somewhere else.
It's a thought, but for the time being, I think I'm stuck here. And anyway, Alice, you shouldn't be worrying about me. It's your father you should be worried about.
No, of course. I'm just saying, after what happened before.
I know, but just because you had a miscarriage once, it doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
No, but I'm still in my 30s then.
Christy, you're fit and healthy, you don't smoke.
I know.
Look, I get that it's important to keep your feet on the ground, but it's still very early days.
Exactly.
But this is amazing news. You don't start fearing the worst.
I'm not. Honestly.
Good. What do you think Eric's going to say when you tell him?
Well, I'm hoping he'll be happy.
You did say he always imagined being a dad one day, so have you discussed what you'd do? I mean, presumably he's going to help support you financially.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll move so he can be closer? I mean, maybe change his job so he's not travelling around as much? Well, I know the long distance things work for you so far, but now you're having a baby together. I mean, is there a chance he could move in?
I don't know. Let's not get ahead of ourselves,
Oh,
eh?
yeah, no.
I'm sure Eric will do his bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Seriously, Adam, you know I'll support you whatever.
Oh, thank you.
If you decide to throw it all in, that you want to move to a croft on a remote Hebridean island.
Now there's an idea.
I don't care, as long as we're together. I just think you need to ask yourself why Brian going back in the inheritance matters to you so much. I mean, is it because of the farm?
Yes, of course.
Or, I mean, is it because you want his approval?
That's the farm, obviously.
Okay, as long as you're sure.
Ian, wait.
Well, I thought we were going this way.
Just hold on a second. I want to take in the view.
Okay.
I still remember Mum telling Debbie and me she was marrying Brian and that we'd be moving into home farm. I really wasn't very sure about him. It was so different from Roger. But then, I don't think he knew what to make of me either. Certainly don't remember him ever playing with me. Instead, he'd take me with him for walks around the farm. He'd tell me about all the improvements he was making, which hedgerows he was grubbing out to make for bigger machinery, which new grape crops he was planting where.
How old were you?
About 8, I guess.
I bet you loved that.
I really did. Brian taught me about farming. More importantly, though, he taught me to love this land. That's why I want the farm, Ian. Because as much as the things he did made sense at the time, I can see the damage they caused. And, I've got, 10, 15 years left farming. And I want to finally do it my way. Hopefully pass it on to Xander, so that one day he can stand on this spot and look out over a farm that's fit for the future. I couldn't care less what Brian thinks of me anymore. What I do care about is home farm.
So, we're not moving to the Outer Hebrides then?
No.
That's a relief.
Doesn't change anything, though. The fact is, Brian's going to cling on to the bitter end. I just don't see how I can keep going like that.
Well, maybe you need to talk to Debbie.
I have been thinking about calling her.
No, I don't mean over the phone. Look, I can be a sounding board, but she's the one who understands the farm. Well, maybe spending some proper time together talking things over, it might give you the perspective you need to find a way forward.
Perhaps. And what are you suggesting, though? That I just drop everything and fly out to see her?
Yeah, why not? If it'll help. Why not go to visit her in Hungary?
Sabine continues. That's after this. In 1986, Pripyat was held up as a model of the Soviet future. A confident city rising from pine forest. At its heart, Club Edison 2, where music from beyond the Iron Curtain filled the room. This is their wedding. There was an explosion that changed everything. I'm Jordan Dunbar, and this is The Last Dance Floor in Chernobyl. On Radio 4 and BBC Sounds, tomorrow night at 8. How to dry lilac flowers and what to grow in pots in a narrow alleyway with limited light. That's just two
In 300 yards, at the roundabout, take the 4th exit and stay on Mill Lane.
Continue our murder mystery drama, Sabine. Ellie has found a USB
sort of structure in terms of it, the kind of the petal texture to a hydrangea. So I would give that a go if you're trying other things. Have you tried that before with it?
I've just tried the hanging upside
down
thing.
That's the normal way. Things like lavender and even dahlias can dry in this beautiful Victorian Gothic way if you just hang them from, a barn. Yeah. Imagine this barn filled with hanging flowers everywhere.
And when they weren't fully open, I would pick them when they're quite tight.
If you're then, with, like you say, with a lilac, if you're trying to dry it in water, you might want to pick it just before it's perfect. But out of curiosity, why lilacs? Because they're shrubby plants. I mean, they're not naturally the thing that you'd think to dry.
It's just so beautiful at the moment. We've got a lovely lilac tree, and I've been cutting them and putting them around the house. And I thought, wouldn't it just, and the smell's lovely. I just thought it'd be different to lavender and things like that I've tried before.
Yeah.
I would say it would be a challenge to dry lilacs because they don't have a lot of the characteristics that you would normally go for with a dried flower. So they have quite thick, fleshy petals. They're also packed quite close together and they contain a lot of water. So that's going to mean that drying them is going to be significantly harder than something like lavender, which is quite low water content, has lots of antioxidants, which is going to prevent oxidation going brown. So it may be tricky, but there is something else you can do with lilacs if you want to enjoy them for a longer season. Yeah. They make very good syrup. They're very good in gin. They make a good water. They even colour all of those things. So you get the nice lilac colour, very popular in Italy. So you could have, lilac gin at Christmas, and then you'd still have the nice colour and scent, just not the full bouquet. May make easier and work better.
You look like you've moved on from the drying.
Definitely. The wet gin is definitely my style.
Thanks for your question, Cynthia. And thanks for those answers, panel. More from the audience here inside the 600-year-old Great Barn in Harmondsworth Zoo. So how's your spring going, audience? Bit up and down? Struggling to keep up with all the jobs? Yes? Okay. Well, we've still got a short while until meteorological summer starts, and there's plenty to be getting on with in the garden. In previous programmes, we've heard Pippa Greenwood tell us about beating slugs early doors. Matthew Pottage gave us the lowdown on dividing perennials, and Bunny Guinness gave us some tips on spring propagation. So rounding off a busy early season, GQT's Chris Beardshaw has some advice on spring pruning, why we do it and what it does.
This is undoubtedly the time of year when gardeners run outside with great enthusiasm, with an urgency to tidy, to prune. But the question is, why? one simple answer to that is that we just want to adjust the size and shape of the plant, or maybe its proportions, or we want to
Turn left onto Rose Lane, then turn left onto Padmore Road.
Potential growth to give it a real kind of spurt of energy to revitalise itself. And of course, it may also stimulate flowers. The most important thing, whatever your intention, is that you start with a healthy plant.
There is just so much to focus on, really, after 18 months and a failure.
Turn left onto Padmore Road.
Is it the right time to continue with this?
I strongly think that it is. 10 months of those 18 months were in the Lords, with lots and lots of procedural delay going on. If the Lords or the minority, and there would still be room for lots and lots of the other things.
In a quarter of a mile, turn right onto Rose Lane.
If the issues aren't resolved, that the Lords, as you put it, filibustering, but certainly the amendments came in. If those issues aren't resolved, does it make sense to put it straight back in?
The reason why they're not resolved is because the Lords won't let there be a vote. If it comes back a second time around, then the Lords will know that they cannot block it anymore because of the Parliament Act. What our Parliament normally does well is resolve issues like this, because I completely accept that some are against, some are in favour of the Lords. But the way we resolve that is by votes in Parliament. And what this filibuster did was stop that happening.
Turn right onto Rose Lane, then turn right onto Whalebone Lane North.
It is, talking of time, just after 5:15, and Charles is here with some of the rest of the day's headlines.
3 men and a teenager have appeared at the Old Bailey, charged with causing about £1 million worth of damage to 4 ambulances owned by a Jewish charity in northwest London.
There's a 5-minute congestion on the A1112 in a quarter mile. You're still on the best route.
Prostate, and the defending French Open tennis champion Carlos Alcaraz has pulled out of this year's tournament with...
Turn right onto Whalebone Lane North, A1112.
President Trump has been warning there will be consequences for what he perceives to be NATO members' lack of support for his bombing of Iran. "We will remember," was his famous quote. Today, his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had this to say.
Europe and Asia have benefited from our protection for decades, but the time for free riding is over.
Continue on Whalebone Lane North for 1.5 miles.
Serve allies who are capable, who are loyal, and who understand that being an ally is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. We are not counting on Europe, but they need the Strait of Hormuz much more than we do, and might want to start doing less talking, having less fancy conferences in Europe, and get in a boat.
Well, a Pentagon spokesperson told the BBC this afternoon the War Department will ensure that the President has credible options to ensure that our allies are no longer a paper tiger and instead do their part. We have no further comment on any internal deliberations to that effect. But if a leaked Pentagon email is correct, we now have a signal of how the US administration might retaliate. The report suggests the US could review its position over the UK's claim to the Falkland Islands as it considers options to punish NATO allies it may no longer view as allies. Well, Katie Balls is the Washington editor for The Times. Welcome, Katie. I suppose we might say familiar rhetoric from Pete Hegseth today, but what is new is this idea of concrete measures of retaliation if this leaked report is correct. How seriously do you think we should take it?
So I think when it comes to the individual measures, so the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands, for example, I think all of that is very much in flux. But certainly what should be taken seriously is this sense that within the Trump administration, there is a feeling that certain NATO allies need to have repercussions for what's happened over the past 6 weeks on the Iran war. And in the Times, we reported a couple of weeks ago that the UK was among NATO countries who were going to be facing this NATO audit effectively by the Trump administration, which has since been called this nice naughty list, where they will be looking at the individual countries, those that they think let them down the most, and therefore taking action. And when I've spoken to UK figures who, on the diplomatic side, who are thinking about this, they think that the UK is not going to be treated as badly as, say, Spain, which we know that Donald Trump takes the most umbrage with.
Yes, because I was going to raise Spain, because there's a sense that Spain really is the top of his list for not. There's 2 US bases in Spain, and Spain didn't allow them or their airspace to be used to attack Iran.
Exactly, and I think the rhetoric coming from the Spanish government, yes, Donald Trump has not taken kindly to some of the kickback from Keir Starmer, but the Spanish rhetoric has been a different level. There's a consistent theme and a consistent conversation, which is they will take some action. But I think there's another way of looking at this, which is, Donald Trump has threatened to take the US out of NATO. The optimists I've spoken to who believe in NATO, they make the point that this is a way of Donald Trump and the administration taking action without actually doing the most drastic thing of leaving NATO, which of course would be quite complicated for him to do anyway.
And have you picked up much pushback to this position inside the US administration or inside the Republican Party more widely, or is this very much the direction of travel?
I think that there's always a sense, that there are Republican lawmakers that do not go as far as Donald Trump on rhetoric. So I think leaving NATO is something which would have some Republican pushback. But certainly from being here in DC, I've been struck that, you don't have to be the most MAGA figure on the right or even on the right to end up in these conversations where people say they feel let down by the UK and other countries. And I think that goes beyond just the president. There is certainly a feeling, I think, in the GOP and the Republican Party more widely, that they think the past couple of weeks has done quite significant damage to the special relationship. And of course, it's been playing fairly well for Keir Starmer domestically, some of the kickback, but there is quite a lot of unity, I would say, in the Republican Party at least, that the sense of the UK was not there when they thought they would be, and they are shocked by that, and they compare it to other crises such as Sicily and so forth when you speak to them. So I think individual punishing measures is something probably you could get quite a few figures in there.